we had no track record. I had never run an association before, and now I was one, so to speak. And we were of the mind that we wanted to do everything we could to see that it had a safe birth and a safe initial growth period, but we also wanted to see that we weren't identified as the association, that it wasn't just an extension of our law firm, that it was really going to grow and take wing and do its own thing. So we undertook to, first, we had a meeting of its board of directors. We had it in my conference room. That occurred on September the 1st, about 3 weeks after we incorporated. And as I recall, all 12 directors appeared that day. We had another meeting of the board later in the year, in November as I recall, and we decided, along in that time frame, that one of the first things we needed to do to obtain some momentum and to keep any momentum that we had at that time going was to have a first annual meeting of the membership. And I don't recall our thinking as to why we did this, but we decided to have that first meeting in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was scheduled to be held in April of '95. I learned pretty quickly there that you don't just call a meeting and everybody appears. There's a lot of logistics that go with it. And again, the logistics was being handled by my secretary. That was our staff, so to speak. So we undertook to get a location in Nashville and to come up with a program and to come up with the funds that were necessary to secure the space, secure rooms, the catering, and so on. And we ultimately had our first program there in Nashville, Tennessee at the Sofer Hotel. And while I recall it was reasonably well attended, I remember that we were pleased by it. I don't recall the number of members that came. I do believe that there were around 100. And I do recall being pleased by it. I recall that we had as our guest speaker at that meeting the former head football coach at Georgia, and at that time the athletic director, Vince Dooley. And he gave the most interesting talk of the 2 days, actually. And it had nothing to do with construction, but he wove in construction principles, and I think it turned out to be a successful meeting. The board decided at that point that it was worthwhile continuing having annual meetings, and that it was too long between annual meetings to let the process go without a meeting. And so it was decided that we would have 2 meetings a year of the entire membership, and that at that time we felt it wise to try to generally place one in the eastern side of the country and one in the western side, so as to alleviate long distance travel from those that couldn't afford it. And as I recall, the fall meeting in 1995 then was held in Scottsdale, Arizona at the Gainey Ranch. And I seem to recall that being a very well attended and an enjoyable meeting. And I have to tell you about a meeting that followed that, because it points up one of the largest deficits that the association had to overcome at the outset, and that was me. We were still at that time operating as a one-horse operation, so to speak, along with my secretary. And we scheduled a meeting to be held in San Francisco. This was in '96. We had been doing seminars now, or doing meetings for a year. I guess we'd had 2 or maybe 3 meetings at this time. And we scheduled a meeting for the Mark Hopkins Hotel in San Francisco. And we had a Wednesday evening, as I remember, that was to be a cocktail reception for everyone coming in, and then the full meeting was to begin the next day. And everyone was excited to be in San Francisco. It was being well attended. We all showed up at the appointed time for the reception, and there was a big crowd in the room. And the only problem was that there were no drinks. There was no alcohol in the room. There were soft drinks, there were peanuts, pretzels, a lot of people, a lot of hungry folks, but there were no drinks. And I asked the hotel gentleman that was there, and he said, "Well, sir, you didn't order any." And it dawned on me for the first time that I had given a party and everybody had come, but we had no drinks. And there was nobody to blame except me.